What's up, guys? I'm Jayzinski, and welcome to episode 0, part 1 of my new series on Ironsworn Badlands. You may be wondering, is this some sort of new video game? Because Jason, that's usually what Jayzinski does on his channel. Well, no. That is not what we're doing today. We are not playing a video game. We are playing a tabletop RPG, and we are playing it completely solo. That is what Ironsworn is. It is a tabletop RPG system that allows you to be your own GM and player. Now, there's tons of resources and videos and stuff out there about Ironsworn. I will leave a link down below to the Ironsworn rule set. You can get it completely free. Wonderful creator Sean Tompkin has made it free for everyone to be able to play a tabletop RPG by themselves, and it's great. But we will not be playing the basic Ironsworn today. If you would like to see how basic Ironsworn works, I highly suggest you check out Trevor Duvall's series on Ironsworn on his channel, Me, Myself, and Die. I will leave a link to that below as well. It's a fantastic series. I highly suggest you go watch it. He does a great job. Today, instead, we will begin building our world in the Badlands. The Badlands, or Ironsworn Badlands, is a supplement created by just a player, a fan of Ironsworn, that sets it in a sort of weird west, wild west world instead, where you have firearms and, you know, you're cowboys and you're out here on the plains, or the just great western area of North America. Now, this isn't going to be North America. This is going to be our own little fantasy world. And through the wonderful questions that Ironsworn poses to us, we will begin building that world. Now, there are also a ton of different assets and paths and stuff, which we will go over in character creation, but that will be in part 2. Part 2 will be character creation. Part 1 is all about building our world and finding out the truths of our Badlands. And there are tons of questions to help us figure out that answer. Well, the answers to those questions. So I'm just going to open up our little notes here because I want to be able to take notes on everything that we write down here. So first we have the weird. So that was our fantasy aspect. There are 3 choices we have here, and then, you know, we can make up our own if we like, but just to make sure that we are, you know, we get through this and we get stuff done, I'm probably going to choose from one of the 3 that each of these questions poses. So, the weird. First option: some speak of odd doings in the Badlands, but these are nothing but superstitions and old wives' tales. People of reason know better. 2. Strange occurrences populate the land if you know where to look, and wary folks look elsewhere. Only the foolhardy would venture into the night alone and unarmed. And 3. Horrors walk the land, and it is only the naive or the lucky who could say otherwise. We must stand in constant defense against them. So, obviously, you know, you have your variety of fantasy and, like, you know, how crazy it is out here in the Badlands. You have, you know, just there's folk tales and stuff about bad things happening, but no one really believes in anything. You have your middle ground where, hey, there is bad stuff out there at night. And, you know, there's just some bad stuff out there, and we know they exist. And 3, it's just hell on earth. But I don't want to be going for like a hell on earth sort of thing. I want to go with a sort of middle ground for this, you know, just your sort of typical. There are beasties out there that we typically don't want to get too involved with. So the weird. And we'll just go some, yeah. Strange occurrences populate the land. You know where to look. Wary folks look elsewhere. I spelled elsewhere wrong. Lol. Only the foolhardy venture into the night alone and unarmed. So we do have a weird west here. And then, of course, we have the Exodus, which is explaining where we came from. The back east. Instead of in Ironsworn, they have the old world. In Ironsworn Badlands, we have back east, which is, you know, the more populated and cities and civilized eastern areas in what would be considered North America. So why did we leave the East? Why did we come on here, like the people who dwell out here in the Badlands now? The religious strictures back east prevented us from worshiping as we wished. We came west seeking the freedom to pray as our God dictates. So, you know, religious freedom, obviously. Mayors, councilmen, senators, governors, and aldermen all had a hand in dictating how we should live back east. We came west to organize our own politics to fit our way of life. So, you know, just trying to live the way you want to live instead of living how people say you should live. Then back east, the rich got richer and the poor got nothing. Out here in the Badlands, everyone has a more or less equal chance to earn a good living or even strike it big. And, you know, left due to poverty or people, you know, putting their boot down, using their money to keep us down. That's a harder question. I like the whole religious aspect, but the idea of wondering, you know, how are things different from back east if our politics are different here in the Badlands? I really think that would be interesting. So I'm going to go with that one. Mayors, councilmen, senators, etc. all had a hand dictating how we should live back east. Came west to organize our own politics to fit our way of life. Now, whatever that is, we don't know. We'll explore that and figure it out ourselves as we play. Next, of course, we have the native peoples, the natives. And, you know, I see these natives as not necessarily being like Native Americans in, you know, our world. I see them as being more fantastical. I think that the native peoples are not human. I don't think they're human. I think they're like fantasy races, because I think that in the East is where the humans came from, and out here in the Badlands is where all the fantasy races live, at least on this continent. And of course, I don't think that the Badlands themselves are that entirely colonized, I guess you could say. I think that it's kind of 50-50 right now. We're like pushing in, but we haven't really taken everything. We're spotty and everything. So I think, you know, we have three choices. Our forebears slaughtered and subjugated those who lived here before we came to the Badlands. Those who remain have been disenfranchised and pushed to the margins. I don't really want that one. Where a peace exists between the Badlanders and those who first lived on the land we occupy. Relationships, commercial, social, and familial, are not uncommon, but can still draw ire from those set in their ways. I really like that one. It leaves a lot open. You can have conflict, and you can also have, you know, friends. There's open conflict between settler and native. Violence regularly breaks out on both sides, and no one is safe from its reach. I think the third one can possibly happen with the second option, depending on the circumstances. So we're going to go with the second one, where peace exists between the Badlanders, those who first lived on the land we occupy. Our relationships are not uncommon, but can still draw ire from those set in their ways. And I think, you know, we should just establish some races right now, since we're going with a fantasy west. So I like the idea of just three simple races, just we all know and love. I think we got the elves, dwarves, and orcs. I think orcs are out here in the west too. They just seem like a good fit for like a western. Like, haven't you ever wondered, man, what would it be like if there were like westerns with orcs? That'd be so cool. So, and like the dwarves living in like these massive mesa fortresses, like when you come across those giant mesa pillars, instead of just being a barren pillar, there's like a dwarf fortress built into the side of it, and you can see these dwarven structures jutting out, built out of like this hardened steel or iron and red rock. It's just a really cool idea. So we're going to keep going down here. Now we have back east. Let's figure out what it's like back where we came from. Back east. Our roots back east are all but forgotten. We have lived in the Badlands for generations, and it is all we know. Nah, I think I don't think I like that one. Contact with the East is sporadic, but still important. Many still feel a connection to their Eastern kin, or back East thinks we are nothing but their colony and seeks to rule over us as they did before we came to the Badlands. Their meddling is constant and oppressive. You know, considering that we've already established that, you know, all these people kept trying to dictate the way we lived back East, and we came west to figure out how... well, not figure out how, but to live the way we wanted to live. I think it'd be interesting conflict to have the back Easters still trying to influence us from where they are, or send groups in to influence us. So yeah, back East thinks we are their colony and want to rule over us as they did before. Their meddling is constant and oppressive. And then of course our community is, how tight-knit are we, how many communities are there and stuff. So the population of the Badlands, let me just write down communities real quick, is sparse and far spread. Most families live in their own small steadings, which are isolated and insular. Gatherings as large as a village are rare, and strangers are viewed with suspicion. Settlements in the Badlands range in size from a steading with a few families to a village of several hundred. Travel and trade between towns is not uncommon. And then last of all, we have established a foothold in the Badlands. Some large towns could even claim the name city, and those dealing in the cattle trade or mining could even be called prosperous. Now, I don't want too civilized and too built up of a Badlands. I think that there are plenty of towns and, you know, small villages and steadings and stuff, but I don't think there's very many huge places. I think there's at least 2 big places in the Badlands, so we're gonna go with the second one. Settlements in the Badlands range in size from a steading with a few families to a village of several hundred. Travel and trade between towns is not uncommon. And of course we have a map over here of the Badlands. You can't see it because the truth is in the way, but I think there are at least 2 places in the Badlands that are pretty big. I think there's a town that's close to back East that is pretty large, you know, sort of like the gateway to the west, like St. Louis is. So maybe we could come up with a name for that town, which we actually can do that here. I'm going to skip all the way down here to the naming convention charts. So we have all these different ways to name things. And let's see here. Oh, Gateway. Yeah, that's cool. That's exactly what we were thinking of right there, is Gateway. Maybe a name. Maybe this city, well, not maybe it is a city, but I think it's still much more of a town. It's like on the river or something, I imagine, just like St. Louis is. Maybe it's also named after a famous person. And so let's come up here. I'm going to go ahead and actually immediately roll on one of these surname tables here to give us a name. So we're going to go roll a D100, and we're going to see what it gives us. 38. Hernandez Gateway. Yeah, so one of the main towns, Hernandez's Gateway. It's like a city on the river and everything. Well, we can write out some stuff for that later. And I think there is a large town further out west, maybe on the west coast, that is used as like a trading post or something. Maybe this coastal town is named after a town that's back east. And it, you know, it's like a new so-and-so, one of those kinds of towns. Oh man, you know, iron is still a big thing in this world, like it is in normal Ironsworn. Iron's like a big deal in normal Ironsworn. I think maybe there's a town back east that's just called like just Ironburg. I don't know what it is, but it just gives me that. So I think just new iron. Oh, maybe not Ironburg. Maybe so I imagine this like eastern city that's like super big in industry, and because of like an iron mine nearby, and I imagine this like waterfall. And I think that this city in Costa Dorita, which is like the western coast area, also has a waterfall like this where it's settled. So I think they decide, you know what, this is the new Iron Falls. Yeah, New Iron Falls, and that's the name of the city out west in Costa Dorita. So yeah, okay. So when we got 2 large places, I think that's plenty, and I think we'll discover others as we come across them. So, and those are our 2 largest communities. Now we learn about the Iron Horse, or trains. So we figure out how trains fit into our world. The railroad is for places where people want to go. The Badlands is not such a place. Why would the railroad ever come here? Surveyors from the railroads have started to appear in the Badlands, planning out routes and taking notes. Perhaps even a few small rail lines have already been built. That seems fair enough. Well, rail lines crisscross the Badlands. They're the backbone of trade and models of efficiency. Anywhere that's anywhere has a station, facilities for passengers as well as freight. I like the middle one because, again, maybe they're bringing the rail lines out here because they're trying to exert more control over the western edges of their territory. So that could be part of, them trying to foist their control over us. So spares from the railroads started to appear in the Badlands. I say not even perhaps a few small rail lines have already been built. I think there are some places, specifically it's 2 big cities, I think there's at least 1 rail line connecting them. That makes complete sense to me. I think it would make total sense that there's a rail line connecting that part to not that part, Hernandez's gateway to New Iron Falls. So yeah, let's put that into Hernandez's gateway and New Iron Falls already been connected by such a rail line. Sort of like the transcontinental railroad, like in our world. So I think that would make sense for them to have something like that. Beasts, and I'm not talking about just normal animals, we're talking about like big monstrous beasts here. So beasts. While folks back east would think every critter around here is fearsome, there's nothing roaming these lands anymore that a Badlander would find unusual. Anyone who says different is just telling tales. Or there are frightful beasts that slither, stalk, and stampede through the wilds of the Badlands. They ain't exactly common, but they ain't exactly as rare as some folks might hope. Or beasts of all sorts roam the Badlands. They dwell primarily in the reaches, but range into the settled lands to hunt. There they often prey on cattle, but attacks on travelers, coaches, or even settlements are not uncommon. I think that there is, I think that the Badlands are inhabited by monstrous creatures. I think that may be the reason why it's taken, humanity so long to come out this far west is because of these monsters. And I think that gives ample opportunity for there to be, monster hunters and stuff, and also have these crazy encounters. And maybe the natives are the only ones who've been able to, tame or defeat these beasts regularly. But maybe even the beasts help keep their numbers down as well, because like maybe the orcs are like the only ones who can like tame these beasts. Maybe the elves are the only, or maybe the other way around. Maybe the elves are the only ones who can tame the beasts, and the orcs are the only ones who can like physically take them on. And maybe the dwarves just completely avoid them by hiding underground. So yeah, beasts of all sorts roam the Badlands. They dwell primarily in the reaches, range to the settled lands to hunt. There they often prey on cattle. I spelled cattle badly. But attacks on travelers, coaches, or even settlements are not uncommon. It is rumored that the elves know how to tame some of these beasts, and that orcs hunt them for sport. Yeah, I think the orcs just, that's part of their culture, is that they know how to take these beasts down, and it's like a game for them. But for us, it's life or death. So I really like that idea with the orcs. I think the orcs are probably one of the more dangerous of the native species that we have come across in the Badlands. Guns. This is the cool part. So, shooting irons are rare and precious. If a body owns one, it's likely the most expensive possession they have, and they're not liable to let it out of their sight. Or guns are tools. Most folk who work dangerous jobs keep them, but those in more pacific professions have no need of them, so being more pacifistic. Or rare's the Badlander who isn't carrying iron. If you draw down on someone, you best expect them to draw back. I think maybe back east, wielding weapons is not allowed. Maybe you're not allowed to wield weapons on your person in public. Maybe sometimes you're not even allowed to keep them at home. Maybe they did away with it, and maybe that's one of the primary reasons we came out to the Badlands, is that we went, no one's taken away my weapons. These are to protect me and my family. And so we moved out west that's one of the reasons, is that they were trying to take away our weapons. So we moved out west. And so I think that most Badlanders have weapons, especially solo people. So I think, yeah, the third one sounds great. Rare is the Badlander who isn't carrying iron. If you draw down on someone, you best expect them to draw back. Yeah, I like that idea right there. The law. I fought the law and the law won. Things in the Badlands ain't nearly as chaotic as those back east would have you believe. For the most part, folks follow the law, and at least out here we've got honest criminals, not besuited businessmen robbing folks with a fountain pen. Or crime ain't exactly rare here in the Badlands. Folks are just about as likely to do what they wish as what they ought, regardless of what might be written down on a piece of paper. So, people can't always be trusted to follow the law. Or the Badlands truly is the Wild West. The only law out here is your will imposed upon another person. Lawbreakers are just as common, if not more so, than law abiders. Now that one is tough. We have to think about, how rampant is crime in the Badlands. I think the middle one is the best, because people came out here to get away from being imposed, their will imposed upon others. But I think there's plenty of people who left back east because they wanted to do whatever they wanted and be terrible people, and the law out here in the Badlands wasn't going to stop them. So I think crime, it ain't exactly rare here in the Badlands. Folks are just about as likely to do what they wish as what they ought. I think that's good enough there. Then we got the land. What is the land like here in the Badlands? Is it, inhospitable? I don't think it's inhospitable. I think there wouldn't be a reason to come out here if the land was completely inhospitable. The Badlands are aptly named. There's nothing good here. It is a wasteland as brutal on the eyes as it is on the body, and survival is a constant battle. Or, the Badlands are a cruel but beguiling mistress. Gorgeous vistas and stunning sunsets belie the perils of the wide and dangerous land. Or, the Badlands are only dangerous if you're as ignorant as a back easter. The landscape is downright verdant if you know where and how to look. I think the Badlands, it takes and it gives. So I think there are places in the Badlands that are perfect, beautiful, like oases, and then there's obviously plenty of places where you'll get torn to shreds by horrible monsters, and you get killed by orcs or enslaved by elves, who knows. So you have to know where the good places are, and watch out for the bad places. And even the good places can sometimes be bad. So I think the middle option is the best. Badlands are a cruel but beguiling mistress. Gorgeous vistas, stunning sunsets, belie the perils of the wide and dangerous land. And I think that about settles it for our truths here. We got everything we need for the truths of our Badlands. And then of course we have all these naming conventions that we can do, but we're not going to get into that right now, and all these accents and whatnot, but we're going to save that for part 2, where I'm going to make the character that I'll be playing through the Badlands. I'll figure out his backstory. I will, give his name, his bonds, his assets, all that stuff like that. Now, if you're interested in Ironsworn Badlands, I will leave a link down in the description to the Reddit post where the guy who made this left it, so you can take a look at it yourself. It's free as well, but I highly suggest you take a look at normal Ironsworn first before you do that, because you're gonna need the information that Ironsworn gives you before you go into this, because you won't know what's going on. So I hope you guys join me for part 2 of episode 0, where we make our character and figure out where he fits into this wild, weird Western world. Until then, I will see you guys in the next one. Farewell, partner.